Good morning, students. Welcome back to our English literature class once again. Now, students, you must be knowing that we have already started a new chapter, and that is the story about Gulliver. It is Gulliver in Lilliput. I have already started discussing this chapter in the online class, in the last online class. And over here I'm just going to tell the detailed part of the story which you do not know, as well as the introductory part of the story which you must know so that you can understand from where and from how this story formed. Okay. So as you all know that this is the story of this is the story. It is not a story actually, it is a novel, as I have told you in the online class that it is a big size book. It is a novel, and it is written by Jonathan Swift. Okay. Now, Jonathan Swift was a well known Anglo Irish author. His work is remarkable for its use of satire. What is this satire? A style of writing where the author draws attention to people's faults or mistakes by making fun of them. So, you can understand what is satire. Satire is picking out or taking out people's faults or mistakes by making fun of them. Okay. Gulliver's Travels. Now, the whole novel that I was talking about is named as Gulliver's Travels. Okay. Gulliver's Travels was Jonathan Swift's most famous novel. Okay. Now, Gulliver's Travels has been written by Jonathan Swift, and it is the story of the various adventures of Lemuel Gulliver, who is basically the narrator of the story. Okay. Now, before I start the main textual part of the story, I just want to explain you the introductory part of the story, which is not at all given in your book. But if you try to listen to the introductory part, you can understand from where the story comes, how it begins. Okay. How everything settled, how everything begins. Okay, you can understand. So it is better to understand the introductory part first. Okay. So there are, as I have told you last year also, that there are 4 separate voyages in Gulliver's Travels. There are 4 separate voyages, means there were 4 separate journeys in Gulliver's Travels. In that particular book, it consists of 4 separate journeys and one journey that you are reading now. That is there inside your book. Okay. So this person, this Gulliver, went for 4 different journeys. Voyages means journey done by ship. Okay. There is a storm before every journey. Now, wherever he went, means in whichever voyage he went for, there was a storm on before each and every journey, each and every voyage. Okay. All the 4 voyages brings new viewpoints to Gulliver's life. Now, whatever the voyages, whichever the voyages that he faced in his life, brings new viewpoints, new feelings in Gulliver's life. Okay. In the first voyage, Gulliver travels to Lilliput, where he is huge and the Lilliputians are small. This you all know. And remember as I was telling about four voyages in the novel named Gulliver's Travels. This one, this Gulliver in Lilliput, is the first journey, is the first voyage of Gulliver. Okay, so in his first voyage, Gulliver travels to the land of Lilliput, where he is huge and the Lilliputians are very small. Okay, the book is written in the first person. In the first person means in the first person narrator. First person narrator, you all know. So the book is written in the first person narrator from the point of view of Lemuel Gulliver, a surgeon. A surgeon means a doctor, you all know. A surgeon and a sea captain who visits remote regions of the world, and it describes four adventures. Now, can you understand that this book is written by the first person narrator, and it is written all about Gulliver's own experiences, all own viewpoints while he moved on these four adventures. Okay, in the first one, Gulliver is the only survivor of a shipwreck. In the first one means in the first voyage, in the first journey, Gulliver is the only survivor, is the only person who could save his life of a shipwreck. Shipwreck means ship that was broken. Okay, so he was the only person who had saved his life on that shipwreck, and he swims to Lilliput, where he is tied up by people who are 6 inches, that is 15 centimeter tall. Okay, this you all know. He is then taken to the capital city and eventually released. The Lilliputians indulge in ridiculous customs and petty debates. Now, after that, he is being taken to the capital city of the land of Lilliputians and eventually released. The Lilliputians indulge in ridiculous customs and petty debates. Means we also have some customs, some rules, some religions that we used to follow. The Lilliputians also had such things. The Lilliputians also had ridiculous means strange, customs means the rules and regulations, the traditions, the religions, all these things. So they had strange customs and petty debates. Debate means the quarrel. Okay. Now, after a fierce storm had wrecked his ship Adventure, Gulliver was washed ashore on an island called Lilliput. Okay, after a fierce storm, how that shipwreck has happened? It may be due to the storm, and that was fearful enough. So after a fierce storm had wrecked means destroyed, damaged, broken. Okay, his ship that he went out for having adventure, Gulliver was washed ashore means he washed to a shore, to a land that was of Lilliput. He awoke to a strange feeling all over his body. Now he awoke to a strange feeling all over his body. This you all know. Why is it so? He found he couldn't move. He found that he couldn't move himself. He looked down and saw hundreds of tiny beings, less than 6 inches tall, moving all over his body. So, as soon as he woke up, he found that as he looked down, he found that there were hundreds of tiny beings, small creatures, less than 6 inches tall, moving all over his body. Okay. The tiny Lilliputians had tied him to the ground so that he could not harm them. So, can you understand? The tiny Lilliputians were also afraid of Gulliver, as Gulliver was having such a huge human figure, according to them, according to the Lilliputs. Okay, so Gulliver, so the tiny Lilliputians had tied him to the ground so that he could not harm them. I won't harm you, said Gulliver, but the Lilliputians would not set him free. Okay, though Gulliver told them that he will not hurt them, but then also Gulliver was not released free by them, by the Lilliputians. Okay, Gulliver promised to help them fight a neighboring country called Blefusco. Now, this is not there in your book at all, but I am just telling you for your information, for your knowledge, and nothing else. Gulliver promised to help them fight a neighboring country called Blefuscu. Okay, so in the land of Lilliputians, they were having a quarrel, they were having a war with a neighboring country, with a country beside, and Gulliver promised to help them to win that war. Okay, and that country's name was Blefusco. Okay, Gulliver captured the enemy's navy with ease and helped the Lilliputians win the war. Now, Gulliver, being such a human figure, can easily win the war with the little ones. Okay, so Gulliver captured the enemy's navy. Maybe the neighboring country, maybe the enemy country were also very small like the Lilliputians. Maybe, I do not know. But somehow Gulliver captured the enemy's navy with ease and helped the Lilliputians win the war. Okay. He became their hero and they made him part of the king's court. Now, as Gulliver helped them, he became their hero. Means their hero means the Lilliputians' hero, and they made him part of the king's court, a member of the king's court. King means the king of the Lilliputians. Okay. But because he longed to see his family, the Lilliputians agreed to let him go at last. Now, because he desired or he wanted to see his own family, at last the Lilliputians agreed to leave him free. Okay, this is the actual story, this is the actual explanation of the first voyage that he went for, that is Gulliver in Lilliput. The second part of the story means why Gulliver was how Gulliver saved himself from the Lilliputians, how he has helped them. All these things are not there in your book at all. The first part of the story is only given. How Gulliver was tied down, what the Lilliputians have done with him. All these things are there inside your book. So we will learn only that part only. Okay. But for your information, for your knowledge, I just told you what is actually about the story. Okay. If you do not understand also, leave it. It's not required. So let us come to the textual part now. Before coming to the textual part, I must suggest that you please open page number 81 in your book and follow the book with a pencil, so that you can understand and mark the important portions. Okay. So it is the story about Gulliver and Lilliput. Lemuel Gulliver is accepted as a ship's doctor and sets out on his first sea journey. So Lemuel Gulliver was the ship's doctor, as I have told you, and he moved out on his first sea journey by the ship. When the ship is caught and destroyed in a storm, that means when the ship was shipwrecked, Gulliver saves himself and swims to the nearest shore. Gulliver somehow saved himself Gulliver somehow saved himself and moved to the land of Lilliputians. Okay. He now finds himself in the strange land of Lilliput and or the land of little people. This you all know, that he then finds himself in the strange land of Lilliput or the land of small people. Okay. Now, let us see the story. When I awoke, it was dawn. I tried to rise, but I was unable to move my body. So, when he awoke from sleeping, it was dawn, it was early morning at that time. I tried to rise. I tried to rise means he tried to rise from that place, but I was unable to move my body, means he couldn't move his body at that time. Okay. What was wrong with me? Gulliver was thinking. What was wrong with him? Why couldn't he move? Okay. I was lying on my back and could only look upwards. Now, by looking at the picture, you can well understand that Gulliver was lying on his back and he could only look upwards. That means he could only see the sky and nothing else. He was lying straight. Okay. Now see the next portion. My arms and legs were firmly tied to the ground with ropes. My arms and legs were firmly tied to the ground with ropes. This you all can understand. Even my long thick hair was tied down. Now this Gulliver was having long thick hair and that was also tied down to the ground. Okay. I felt several thin straps across my body from my armpits to my thighs. See, he felt several thin straps, thin ropes around his body, and that was tied from his armpit. Armpit means the beginning from where the arm starts, the beginning from where the hand starts. Okay, so from his armpit till the thighs, he was tied down. Okay. The sun began to grow hot and the light hurt my eyes. Now, previously you must be knowing that it was dawn, but very soon the sun must be rising. And as soon as the sun rises up, the light of the sun will hurt, the light of the sun would hurt his eyes, as Gulliver was lying straight. He could not move his head at all. Okay. Suddenly, I felt something moving up my left leg. See what has happened? Suddenly, he felt that something was moving upon his left leg. What was that? Let us see. It moved gently forward over my chest till it came up almost to my chin. The thing that was coming towards him, coming up towards his body, it moved forward towards his chest. Even it came up almost to his chin. Okay, Chin is the bottom portion of the face, of your own face. Okay, below to it, below to your mouth. So he he found that one particular thing who had risen upon his body now coming towards his chest and also towards his face. Okay, now just turn the next page, see what it is given. Then I saw the strangest of sights. Then I saw the strangest of sights means strangest, strange means unusual. Okay, then he had seen the unusual thing. Then he had sights means the view that he has seen. Okay, so he then saw the unusual things. What is that? It was a tiny human creature about 6 inches high with a bow and arrow in his hands and a quiver on his back. Now the thing that he had seen, it is a tiny, small, tiny means very small, human creature about 6 inches high. 6 inch means 15 centimeter that I had told you. It is like the shape of the small scale that you have inside your pencil box. So it was a tiny human creature about 6 inch high with a bow and arrow in his hands and a quiver on his back. Quiver is the box for carrying those arrows. Okay. Another 40 of them came up my body. Another 40 means another 40 of the members of the Lilliputs came upon his body. In utter astonishment, I roared out loud. In utter astonishment means in complete surprise, he shouted loudly. Now, this Gulliver, by not knowing what is happening, what was wrong with him, he roared out loudly with full of surprise. Okay. Okay. Now, see what is given next. They jumped back in fright. Now, as I have told you that this Gulliver shouted so loudly, by the shout that he created for this reason, the Lilliputs, as they were very small, they got frightened and jumped out of his body, jumped back or moved back. Okay. I was told later that some of them were hurt when they toppled from my body. Now, what was another thing that he had heard later on? He heard, maybe from the other members later on, that some of the Lilliputians were hurt by the shouting that he created when they toppled. Toppled means losing balance. They lose their balance by the shout and they fell from his body. Okay, the loud shout that he created, that Gulliver created, made few of the Lilliputians jumped back or moved back, whereas the other Lilliputians lose their balance and fell from his body. Okay, so these were the reactions of the Lilliputians after hearing his loud shouts. Okay, since according to Lilliputians, this Gulliver, this man was having such a huge figure that they had never seen before. Okay, so they got surprised, they got frightened also. However, they returned soon. Now see, however, though they got frightened, but they returned soon. One of them even dared to come up to my face. One of them means maybe the bravest among them, even dared to come upon his face, to climb upon his face. Okay. He lifted up his hands and eyes in admiration and cried out in a shrill voice, Now the person who came up upon his face, he lifted his hands in order to, maybe in order to tell something, and his eyes were full of admiration by looking at such a human figure that they had never seen before. He was looking with admiration, okay, and cried out with a shrill voice. Shrill means very sharp voice, okay. The others repeated the same words several times, but I could not understand what they meant. The others means the other people, the other 40 members that joined with him repeated those words for the several times, but this Gulliver could not understand what they were telling. Maybe Gulliver was having different language and these Lilliputs were having different language. Maybe due to that he couldn't understand what the Lilliputs were telling. Okay. I struggled to get loose and managed to break the ropes and pull out to the pegs that held my left arm to the ground. See what is given? I struggled means I took lot much pain, lot much labor to get loose. To get loose means to lose himself, and managed to break the ropes. Break the ropes means the ropes with which he was tied, and pull out the pegs. Pegs means the iron nails. Okay. So he want to release him from those ropes and all. So he tried to break the ropes. He tried to pull out those pegs. Okay. That held my left arm to the ground. That held his left arm, left hand to the ground. He wanted to release that left hand by breaking the ropes, by pulling the pegs. Okay. With a painful pull, I loosened the strings that tied down my hair on the left side so that I could turn my head slightly. See what is given? With a painful pull. Now, as his body was tied with so many ropes and pegs, while losing himself, while releasing himself, he must be having a painful pull. He must be having pain, but then also he tried to pull himself. Then also he tried to pull his left hand in order to release himself. Okay. So, with a painful pull, I loosened the strings, he loosened the ropes that tied down my hair on the left side. On the left side of his head, he tried to loose those ropes, those strings, so that he could turn his head slightly. Okay, if he cannot move his head slightly, how will he see what is happening beside him? He do not know, he couldn't understand even. Okay. Before I could catch one of them, the creatures ran off. Now, before he could catch one of them means, that means you can well understand by this that he had already released his left hand. Okay. So, with that left hand, he tried to catch one of them. But before he could catch one of them, they ran away. Okay. A great shout went up from the crowd. A great shout means he suddenly heard a great shout from the crowd. From the crowd means from the group of Lilliputians. Okay. Immediately 100 arrows hit my left hand. Immediately 100 arrows maybe by 100 Lilliputians. Okay. Hit his left hand, the hand that he had released before. They pricked me like hot needles. They pricked me means those arrows, those 100 arrows pricked him like hot needles. Okay, now the arrows that the Lilliputians were using must be very much small enough, must be like needles according to Gulliver, since they were very small. So he felt some prickling on his body by with hot needles. It seemed to him that it is hot needles, but actually to the Lilliputians those were arrows. Okay. Some fell on my face, which I covered with my left hand. Some fell on my face means some of the arrows fell on his body, on his face, which he had covered with his left hand. Okay, by putting the left hand on his face, on his forehead, he somehow saved his face. Okay. I began groaning loudly in pain. Now at that time he felt very pain. He started shouting with pain. Groaning means shouting with pain, crying with pain. Okay. He began groaning loudly in pain. I tried to get loose once again. He then also tried to lose himself once again. Some of the tiny people tried to stick spears in my sides. Some of the tiny people tried to stick spears. What is spear? See, weapons which have pointed ends that are attached long sticks and are thrown at a target. Okay, it is like the arrows only. So, but it is lengthy than the it is the spears are lengthy than the arrows. Okay. So some of the tiny people, some of the Lilliputs tried to stick spears in his sides. Some of the Lilliputians tried to stick or tried to pierce some spears upon his sides so that he could not move. Okay. Luckily, I was wearing a leather jacket which they could not pierce. Now, can you understand? He was, by luck, he was wearing a leather jacket that the Lilliputians could not pierce, could not make any hole. Pierce means making holes. Though they were prickling him, though they were pricking him with those arrows and spears, but then also they could not pierce him as Gulliver was wearing a leather jacket, luckily. Okay, so luckily I was wearing a leather jacket which they could not pierce. Okay, I felt I could easily free myself and challenge their army, but I decided that the wisest thing would be to lie still. Okay, see what has happened? I felt I could easily free myself. Now, Gulliver thought within himself that he could easily free himself and challenge their army and challenge or threaten their army, threaten the Lilliputians. But he decided the wisest thing, the most wise thing, the intelligent thing is to stay still without doing anything. To let's see what they actually do, whether they harm him or not. Okay. At once they stopped their arrows. Now, as he waited patiently without harming them, without doing anything wrong to them, they stopped their arrows. Okay. Due to the growing noise around me, I knew that more of the little people had arrived. Now, due to the growing noise means the noise were increasing, and as he could hear the more number of voices, he could understand that more number of little people were arriving towards him, were coming towards him. Okay, about 4 yards from me, near my right ear, I heard a knocking and banging like people at work. So about about 4 yard. Yard is actually an unit of measurement. So about 4 yard, he could understand that the people were standing there, and what they were doing, they were standing near to his right ear, and he heard some knocking and banging like, and at the right side of the ear he heard some knocking and banging like people at work, like people doing some work. All these things that he could understand is by the sounds that he can hear, by the noise that he could hear, as he could not see anything. He was lying straight on his back, so he could not understand what is happening just beside him. Okay, he was trying to understand everything by the noises that he can hear. Okay. I turned my head as much as I could. Now, see, this person who was lying on his back, who could not move his own body, but could hear several noises, must be very much eager enough, must be very much curious enough to know what is actually happening, what these tiny creatures were doing. So he tried to move his head as much as he could. Okay. I saw them putting up a stage with 2 or 3 ladders on the side. See what he had seen? He had seen that they were putting up a stage. Stage means a table, a stage where maybe some performance will happen, whatever it is. So they were putting up a stage with 2 or 3 ladders on the side. Okay. A well dressed man climbed on to the stage and made a long speech with many actions. See what has happened? A well dressed man, this you can understand, climbed on the stage and made a long speech with many actions. With many actions, one of the person made a long speech which was made only to make this Gulliver understand. Okay. Now all these things, this little man was doing is only to make Gulliver understand what he want to say. Okay, this a well dressed man, by climbing on the stage, making a long speech with several actions. This is only for what? This is only for Gulliver to make their words understand. Okay. I mumbled a few words in reply and showed that I would be obedient. Now, can you understand? I mumbled. I mumbled means moving lips without sound. He could not understand now what that well dressed man was telling. He do not know their languages, and out of pain also he could not say any such words properly. Okay. So he moved his lips in order to tell a few words in reply, but he somehow showed that he would be obedient, he would listen to them. Okay. I promised that I would not hurt them. I then made signs to show them how hungry I was. Now he then managed to show some signs to them so that they could understand that he was very hungry. Okay, I even put my finger to my mouth. He somehow managed to put his finger on his mouth so that they can understand that he was very hungry. Okay, the great Lord understood me very well. The great Lord means the king of the Lilliputians. Okay, understood him very well. He commanded the men to place several ladders at my sides. He commanded means he ordered to put several ladders beside him. Okay. 100 tiny men mounted and walked towards my mouth with basket full of meat. Can you understand? Now why hundred of the people, why baskets full of meat? Why is it so? Can you imagine? Can you understand? These were very tiny creatures, so their foodstuffs must be very small enough compared to Gulliver, as Gulliver is such a human figure. So, in order to feed him, one person bringing one food item is not at all enough, will be nothing. Okay, so in order to make him have food, hundreds of the people, 100 Lilliputians have to feed him, and they need to bring baskets and baskets and baskets full of meat. Okay, in order to reduce his hunger. Okay, so 100 tiny men mounted and walked towards his mouth with basket full of meat. Okay, I ate them in 2 or 3 mouthfuls with bread the size of bullets. Now, can you understand what I was telling? I was telling before this thing only. I ate them in 2 or 3 mouthfuls with bread the size of bullets. Now, can you understand? The foodstuff that they were providing, maybe the bread, maybe the meat, whatever it is in the size of bullets. Why is it so? Since those were only 6-inch tiny people, so their food items must be very small. They were in the size of bullets. So, Gulliver, being a normal human being, only having a little much food will not be enough. Okay, only having the food uh, in the size of bullets must not be enough. So he swallowed all the food all of a sudden. Okay, he swallowed all the food items all together by 2 or 3 mouthfuls. Okay, they supplied me as fast as they could. Now, they supplied me means the food items as fast as they could, shouting in wonder at my huge appetite. Now, they supplied the food items as fast as they could, shouting in wonder at my huge appetite. Appetite means the capacity of having food. Okay, they were shouting in wonder means they wondered how much this person can have. Okay, they have never seen such a human being before. They do not know that how is it possible to have all those foods all of a sudden. Okay, but this is for the first time they had seen such a human figure who was just swallowing all the food items, all the foodstuffs that they were bringing all together. So they were wondering, they were shouting in wonder and was thinking about the appetite, about the capacity of having food of this man. Okay. I then made another sign that I wanted a drink. He then somehow managed to show another sign that he wanted to drink water. Okay. The clever people skillfully pushed up one of their largest barrels, rolled it towards my mouth, and removed the cap. Now, see what they have done in order to drink him. The clever people skillfully pushed up one of their largest barrels. Barrels means it is a cylindrical shape container. It is a cylindrical shape container, okay, for having liquids on it, for carrying liquids, or you can say that these types of barrels are being used for storing water, for storing oil. Okay, so they somehow pushed those largest barrels, those largest containers, rolled it towards his mouth, and removed the cap so that he could drink. I drank the liquid in a gulp. I drank the liquid means the liquid that they were giving in a gulp. In a gulp means all of a sudden, all together. Okay. It was delicious. It was delicious means the liquid that they had given it to him in order to drink. It tastes delicious. Okay. They brought me a second barrel. Second barrel means the second barrel of that liquid. Okay, second container of that liquid, which I drank in the same way. Which I drank in the same way means with a gulp. With a gulp means, see, in the meaning portion it is written to swallow in large mouthfuls, means to have it all together in large mouthful, means in one full mouth. Okay, he had galloped it. He had swallowed it. Not galloped, sorry. He had swallowed it. Okay, all together. I made signs for more, but they had no more to give. Now, see, he made signs to give him more. To give him more means to give him more liquids. He was so thirsty, and maybe he liked the taste of it, but there was no more. And how much those tiny creatures will provide liquids and foodstuffs to this big size human creature, to this big size human being. Okay, their foodstuffs, their uh, water, their liquids must be finished in order to feed him. Okay, how much they will bring also all together from one place to another. Okay, they were amazed at my appetite, and they danced upon my chest and shouted. Now see, they were amazed means they were surprised at my appetite. Appetite means, see, the feeling of wanting to eat food. As I have said, the capacity of having food. So the same thing, they were wondered, they were amazed, they were surprised by looking at the appetite of Gulliver, and they danced upon my chest and shouted. Means out of excitement, out of amazement, out of wonder, they started dancing upon his chest and shouted. Okay, shouted with happiness, with wonder, all these things. Okay. These people had treated me so well. Now, Gulliver is telling that these people had treated him so well. Surely I owed them some gratitude for their kindness. Surely I owed means it is written. Here he means that because the little people had been so kind to him, he felt that he had to repay them by doing something good for them in return. So, this you can understand that Gulliver thought that since these tiny people were so good to him, uh, he may he must also pay those things back. Repay means pay. He must also do something good for them in return. Repay means in return. Okay. So I also felt these tiny souls were very courageous. He also felt that these tiny souls means tiny people must be very courageous, that they were not so afraid of Gulliver though he was having such a huge figure. Okay, they must be so courageous that they come upon his body, they feed him, they danced upon him. They were not so they were not so afraid of him. They must be so courageous, isn't it? So how bold they were to climb and walk upon my body. See what it is written? The same thing is written. They must be very bold enough to climb upon him and to walk upon his body. Okay. One of my hands were still free to harm them, but they walked without fear, without trembling at the sight of this gigantic creature. See what it is written? One of the hands, maybe the left hand that he made free before, one of the hand was still free at that time to harm them. Means if he tried to harm them also, he could have done it by one of the hand that was free, but he didn't do so. Okay, but these little creatures, they walked without fear, though they knew very well that one of his hand was free and he could hurt them at any of the moment, but then also they moved upon him fearlessly. Okay, without trembling at the sight of this gigantic creature. Without trembling means, you all know, without moving unsteadily at the sight means at the thing that they were looking at of this gigantic creature. Gigantic means extremely large. Who is this extremely large? Who is this gigantic creature over here? Yes, this is Lemuel Gulliver. It is Gulliver himself was the gigantic creature, was the very large figure compared to the Lilliputs. Okay, they must be feeling very afraid of this huge figure, this gigantic creature. So these Lilliputians, not feeling so afraid, they rose upon his body, they feed him, they were very courageous, they were very kind towards him also. Okay, that is why he felt that he must be doing something good to them in return. Okay, so here completes the story. See, it is written at the very bottom of the story. It is from Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. So, as I have told, that this is only a part of the novel from Gulliver's Travels. That means Gulliver's Travels is the novel name, and it is written by Jonathan Swift. Okay, so here we complete the story. I think you have all understood. If you have not understood, you can definitely tell it in the classroom. You can comment below to my video lecture. I will answer over there. Okay, so today till this much. Thank you everyone.